Live from the chicken wing capital of the world, Buffalo, New York. You're listening to the Childcare Bridge Podcast, your source for the best tips, tools, and tactics on how to market and grow your childcare center, ensuring total domination. Total domination. This is the Childcare Bridge, and this is your host, Michael Tasner.
Hey there, and welcome to this week's edition of the Childcare Bridge. Today is the second part of a three-part series on how you can put together and execute strategic annual planning, with the key word being strategic. The whole point in going through these exercises is so that you don't just put a couple of people in a room, slap some stuff on a board, and feel like you completed the exercise. Last week's content kind of builds on this week. So if you haven't listened to last week's, please do. But I'll give you the rapid recap before we jump into the content today. So last week, we talked about putting together a list, yourself and all of your team. So your director or directors, your frontline team, your teachers, the cooks, everyone that's involved in your childcare empire. And to have them put together a list of the different projects that got executed, and then to basically do a SWOT analysis of each of those projects. So you're going to look at what worked, what didn't work, what are some of the opportunities, what are some threats. And the goal of all of that is to kind of have a summation of all the projects and different interpretations from your team as to how well or not so well it ended up happening. And from there, you're going to build a list of some potential projects and some ideas for this upcoming year. So that's kind of the rapid summary. Today, we're going to continue to build on the prep work so that next week we then talk about, well, how do you then take all this data and actually have a really solid strategy day or multiple days, depending on the size of your organization. So today, what I want you to do is to go through the motions of a list that is very, very simple and very, very basic. And it has two completely different sections. It's the start doing list and the stop doing list. What are all of the things at your center that you feel that you need to start doing? So I'll give you some examples. You might say we need to start having weekly one-on-one leadership meetings. We need to actually define our core values and the type of culture that we want at our centers. It could be to start having a monthly meeting where you effectively review your profit and loss statements and your receivables and any credits that are due and all of that quote unquote stuff. But what I encourage you to do is to sit back for roughly 90 minutes, and you're going to do this 2 days in a row. So 90 minutes, and literally just to have tunnel vision at all things across your center. Now, the other thing that I want you to do when you are doing this start doing list is I want you to reflect inward. And I can tell you that more often than not, the start and stop doing list, if it doesn't include things that are kind of defined to you personally, it's not going to be nearly as effective. So for example, on my start doing list, I would say I need to start exercising at minimum 3 times a week with a goal of exercising 5 days a week. If I don't start that, I know I'm not going to have the energy to accomplish my goals. So I need to execute that. I might say that I need to stop watching 2 hours a day of Netflix, for example, which I normally don't, maybe on a weekend. But I want to go through my list of what do I believe I need to start? What are all the things that I need to stop? And when you've got your personal stuff, then you're going to go into all the different directions across your center. So similarly to what we looked at last week of projects, this is a little bit more kind of broad and open-ended. And it's more of the ideas that maybe you gleaned this year. Maybe you listened to a conference. Maybe you attended a seminar. Well, I should really start deploying profit first at my center, so we're moving the money around a certain way. Maybe I should start deploying digital marketing, which obviously I'm going to tell you that would be at the very top of your list. But equally as important is all the things that you feel that you need to start needs to have a very hefty list of all the things you need to stop doing. Because I can promise you that there are a lot of things that you're doing, your team is doing, the business is accepting that are not giving you what you want. Maybe you need to stop allowing families to be 60 days behind and then to continue to allow them to come into your centers. Maybe you need to stop taking a certain type of family that you're just not set up to take. Maybe you need to stop allowing your team to constantly be coming in 30 minutes late once or twice a week. Maybe you need, and it's a lot of it like accepting. Notice how this stuff does correlate back to you. Expect and inspect. So I like to inspect what I'm expecting. If I'm inspecting my team to do a certain thing, if I'm expecting they're going to show up on time, I need to inspect it and make sure. But if I'm continuing to tolerate that, that goes back into my personal list. But it also is a company-wide, center-wide type of issue because your directors are also letting it happen unless it is the director that's coming in late. And then your management team is letting those things slide. Far too often, I'm getting into conversations with owners and they're saying things like, well, the directors, that they know that we need them and we need their certifications and their licenses and their education. That's why we have to keep them so we don't push back on them. But what is that causing? What precedent is that actually setting across your centers that you're going to be beholden to your directors? You are the owner. You set the rules. And I promise you that you can find people that have the same credentials, if not better credentials, that are a better fit for your team. These people are out there. It's the story that you've been telling yourself that they're not out there, they're going to be hard to find, it's a lot of work, so it's easier just to keep them, but that in turn is not helping you grow your business. So after you've deployed this list, I want you to ask your core staff, and it can go even a layer deeper, and candidly, you could give this to the entire team, and ask them to do the exact same exercise. Now, similarly to last week, I want this to be a blind exercise. I don't want the staff to know what you put on the list. I don't want the director to know what some of your lead teachers put on. I don't want the cleaning company, for example, or the people that are helping with maintenance. I don't want them to know what's on your list or anyone else's, and vice versa. I want all of this feedback, and they should follow the exact same format. So 90 minutes, and then come back day 2 and add. Key point, add, never subtract. If something made it to your list in the first place, it shouldn't get removed. You added it there for a reason. I don't care how out of the box, I don't care how expensive, how unrealistic any of these start doing things are. They should be on the list because this list is going to help drive and spur conversations. Now, after everyone is done, you want to have them send everything over to you, and you're going to randomize everything. So you're going to put together now a start doing and a stop doing master list that takes everyone's feedback. Now you're going to combine things that had the exact same thing. So we should start using a tool like Brightwheel or ProCare. If 10 people said that, you're going to list it once, and then you're going to put 10 votes. So you're going to add all the things, you're going to combine the exact same items, only if they're the exact same. And then you would say, great, how many votes were for that? And from there, you're going to ask your team to blindly go in and rate the top 5 start doing and stop doing. Again, the details here are key and absolutely critical so that you don't end up running into the issue that a lot of center owners do. I don't want you to send this out to everyone because then everyone else can see what things have been getting a lot of votes for. Oh, geez, well, Michael he already voted for his top 5. I'm going to just take those. I want you to get individual feedback. So if that means you have to send the same file to 25 different people and have them email it back to you and you tabulate it, I really don't care. But I do not want other people to be impacted or influenced based on what other people have already filled out. The secret sauce to this exercise and getting candid feedback is that it's anonymous by way of their peers and that people don't know what they're then voting for. So ask each of your team, I want you to rate the top 5 start doing, the top 5 stop doing. And what you're then going to do there is that's going to make its way to another sheet of paper as here are the top 5 start doing, here are the top 5 stop doing. And that's going to be another document that you're going to walk into your annual planning with. So you're going to take the document and the data from last week of all your projects, and that boils up to some of the projects and the ideas that you're going to execute, any massive threats that need to be cleaned up. So you have one document there, your second document with your top 5 rated in both categories, as well as potentially hundreds of other ideas. Now, the final piece to this equation is something that is very different, and it's not necessarily something that is well talked about in this industry. And that is asking each of your team to identify the most important number, the most important metric that they can essentially report to you every week or every day that you can judge their performance and or the performance of your centers. So let me give you some examples and then tell you why this is important. So if I look at a director, depending on the duties, every director's duties are a little bit different, but I can argue that the number one most important metric for a director could be family happiness or a net promoter score of all the families. So that could be a metric, and maybe that's a once a month metric that director reports on. And what that's telling you is the likelihood of these families to refer other families. Are they getting good care? Are their kids going to be happy? Like, that number can tell you kind of the pulse on how things are going. If you then boil it down into kind of the more boots on the ground, a lead teacher, for example, they could be reporting the number of active families that are coming back day after day after day after day, so showing that they're happy, they like the teacher, for example. The chef, or if you have someone that's preparing meals, they might have a metric for X number of healthy meals that are served. On your sales and marketing team, it could be number of tours that were conducted, and that obviously is a leading indicator that's then going to show you how many potential enrollments you're going to have. If you have 50 tours on a monthly basis, you might say, well, Michael, I know that that's going to equate to 32 enrollments, for example. So if you're tracking that number, and you're going to have to really think strategically about this. And as multi-center owners, you're going to have a lot of different roles. You might have some operational people, some finance people. And when I'm looking at those numbers, it's got to boil down to the one most important number, and they can then supply you to additional metrics or key performance indicators, but there always has to be an emphasis on the one most important number. As an owner, maybe your number one most important number could be profitability. Maybe it would be the number of full-time equivalent enrollments. And if you're tracking that particular number and you're looking at that every single day and you're reporting to your team, great, we have 264 FTEs. And if you report it week over week over week and next month it's 210, you start to spot some issues and you can go in and dig in and see what's going on there. But you should then be able to look at the department or departments that are responsible. Well, our number of tours went down by 80%. Well, then you look even further. Well, the number of leads went down. Well, we cut our marketing budget. And it allows you to kind of tell the story, but it allows you to keep a great pulse on how things are going. One of the biggest lessons that I need to push to you and teach you and train you on is that you need to manage your centers based on the metrics. What is the data telling you? And making data-driven, facts, not feelings, decisions. And it can all be boiled down into metrics and things that are easily tracked. So what I'm looking for your team to do and yourself is to respond to an email to you with what they believe is their number one most important number that should be tracked either daily, weekly, monthly, and then to include 2 additional metrics. So the director might say, I think I should be tracked the number of full-time enrollments as my most important number. And my secondary ones could be the net promoter number, and it could be staff happiness. If they are responsible for the happiness of the team at that location, then that could be a trackable metric. And what we're looking to do then is to take all that data, take the start and stop doing list, and all the data from your projects that you executed this year or didn't execute, and then to walk into your annual planning strategically so you've done all this pre-work. The team has been able to think and to reflect in a way that's not biased and influenced. A lot of people feel very uncomfortable talking in front of their peers. And what you've done in doing this is that you've separated out all those ideas and you're presenting them to the entire team, and you're going to now talk through and work through all these ideas in a strategic fashion. So tune in next week. I'll talk about how to go through the meeting, what it looks like, how to have a great pulse so that you can finalize out this process and then repeat year after year after year. Michael Tazer signing off. Good morning, good afternoon, and good night. I'll see you next week as we rapidly approach the holidays.